The precipitation outlook that is normally provided from the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology in Barbados um, is showing that for the months of May, June, and July, there's going to be a 50% below normal rainfall and 20% normal rainfall, which is saying that basically for the next 3 months, we're going to see at least an 80% normal to below normal rainfall. What that means is that it's not that there's not going to be no rainfall. What is going to be received is going to be below normal, at least 50% below normal. So, for example, if let's say in a location like let's say Belvedere, where you would normally get 15 inches of rainfall in the month of May, or let's say 12 inches. Now what you'll get is 6 inches. So what that means is there is going to be increased risk of crop failure if you don't have irrigation as a farmer. And it also means that you need to begin to take some preparation methods so that you could preserve whatever crops you have in the ground, and so that you could get a production at the end. Um, the rain that has fallen in the last few days is not the sum total of all the rain that we receive for the month. Right? April is normally the wettest month of the year, going into May, and we had a very dry April. However, the predictions from since January were showing that it's going to be a little more wetter dry season. And now that we come into the end of the dry season, we see that we're going to have a longer, drier period going into July. So I would say to farmers, don't be quick to go and start to plant crops that requires a lot of water for them to survive. For example, crops like lettuce, cabbages, etc. You could hold on those still. If you have them in the ground, keep you know watering them, etc. But don't don't be quick to go and plant now because of the little rain we have received at the end of April, coming into the first few days of May. Um, you would need to keep monitoring your weather reports, and also you should begin to take soil conservation measures, meaning your mulch, you're using compost, your pen manure, you're using your grasses, dry grasses to cover the soil, etc., so that you could retain moisture in the soil, so that the crops would have some to go through the dry period that is predicted. It all depends on the stage of crop maturity. If you just doing seedlings, then the risk is greater of loss. If you have crops that are already established going into fruiting, well, like tomatoes, etc., then the risk is reduced. Tomatoes anyway likes a dry period, for fruit maturity. If you have crops like sweet peppers, etc., I believe they would be able to go through that period. That's providing you don't have irrigation. If you have irrigation, then you don't have a problem. You could always monitor your weather report and apply your moisture to suit the outlook, to suit what how much rain you get for the day. If you don't have and you just relying on rainfall to produce, then you may have some challenges. Of course, it's a outlook. It's not perfect. There is a margin of error, but after monitoring it for the last, I would say, 5 years, I believe there is a very close um, proximity to what they predict. They predict normally happens. So of course, rainwater harvesting is still a method that could be used to ensure that you have water, so you can get a couple drums on your farm and you store some water, so that you could at least give the plants some water during the dry days that we're going to be experiencing. Last year was a lot drier, right? This year, as I said, the outlook was showing that we was going to have a wetter dry season. Normally at the end of the dry season, so normally the dry season ends in June. And that we would begin to see some rainfall, but but this year it's appearing that we will go through a little drier period. I hope what we've seen for August, September, October is saying that it will going to be wetter. It's going to be a 45% above normal rainfall, so that's good. So at least farmers will have some hope, that even if they planted some crops, once it takes longer than 3 months to mature, they will have at least some relief in August, September, October. Main thing is to ensure that your crop have enough water. So that your time of water application is also very important, where you would either you do it early in the morning and in the evening, so twice a day. You don't want to applying water in the middle of the day. The plants naturally have a process where they would wilt to conserve water, and then they will at the end, when it gets cool, they will return to their normal look. So you could irrigate, apply water by hand with your hose twice, early in the morning and then in the evening after 4, so that at least you would be able to save your soils and your plants. And that's also for even if you have fruit trees, that you live in a pretty dry area, especially in the south. You would still want to give them some water so that they could survive. There's no doubt that the climate is changing, and because of that, you've seen a lot of variability in the seasons. Right? Historically, we had a fixed dry season and a fixed wet season. When as soon as June reached, you would begin to get the heavy rains. I would say over the last 10-15 years, we have seen a lot of changes in that. So we've had extreme dry periods in the middle of the wet season and extreme wet periods in the middle of the dry season. And so that's why it's important now that we really begin to pay attention to data and information that is available pertaining to water availability, rainfall, especially in agriculture. So the ministry has established and is in the testing phase now of a hydrometric network, where we have installed a number of automatic weather stations all over the island to give more real-time data, so that will help us to become more accurate in terms of the predictions. A lot of the data now goes into what the Caribbean Institute for Meteorology and Hydrology is using to do the analysis for the outlooks. So I think we could expect climate to vary from month to month. Grenada naturally has a lot of microclimate. So even within the small island that we live on, we have areas that receive very high rainfall and areas that don't receive any rainfall. We have areas that are in close proximity that receive heavy rainfall, and then an area maybe half a mile away doesn't get any rainfall. That is a natural occurrence in Grenada. And with climate change and climate variability, I think we're going to see a lot of that variability happening. So farmers have now to pay attention to the weather reports. They have to pay attention to the information coming from the ministry. So the extension officer would say, listen, the outlook is saying so and so, pay attention to it, take heed, prepare for it, so that at least you don't suffer any loss because you did not really believe what was being said. Of course, I mean, we can be exact. We're not prophets and predicting and saying it must happen, but at least I think we could pay attention to the information. NAWASA has been paying attention to the information. If you realize there's a lot of changes in how they operate, etc., and in the preparations they make, so that they could really begin to help us, the consumer, to deal with whatever changes are happening with weather, so that we could have a constant supply. And it's the same practice for the farmer. You pay attention to information and data so that you could not suffer the losses if you did not.